really glad that you're here. I'm Matt Hurwitz, I'm the Dean of Liberal Arts. I'll be quick. I just want to say that I'm glad that you're all here. I think you're in for a real treat. The world that we live in is a complicated one, where we're often being pulled in many directions at once, and our attention is often being pulled in many directions at once by the things around us, by our phones, by our busy lives. It's such a rare thing to be able to sit down and focus and concentrate on something that's beautiful and rare and wonderful and artistic. So I'm really glad that you're here for our first of our academic year Visiting Writers Series events. You're in for a real treat today, so give yourself the opportunity to kind of take a deep breath, listen and learn, enjoy the language, ask some questions if the opportunity arises. I do want to give a big shout out to Professor Tom Laughlin, who organizes all of these activities. Let's give him a big round of applause. I also want to thank our other creative writing faculty, Professor Ramirez, Professor Ardoni, Professor Bennett. I think many of you have them as your instructors, and you're lucky to have them as well. Big thanks to Jennifer for joining us today. Jennifer, thank you very much. Glad to have you here. We were talking right before this, and I was saying I was actually reading some of her poetry to kind of get in the mood before coming over here and welcome you all. And it caused me to just kind of enter a different headspace, and that felt joyful and slow and attentive. And so thank you for the gift of your poetry. I'm so glad you're sharing it with our students here today. So thanks for being here. I hope you have a great time, and thanks again to our creative writing faculty. Thanks so much, Matt.
Here and welcome. This is our first MCC Visiting Writers Series event for the year, and this series is sponsored by the Creative Writing Program as well as the Office of Student Engagement. And I want to few thanks Maria McDuffie Clark and their Office of Student Engagement staff, Dean of Liberal Arts Matt Hurwitz, and the English Department Chair Jill Keller help get word out and support us in our event. So today we will hear from Jennifer Jean, who will read from her work, and we'll have a question and answer period. We'll raffle some books as well, and she'll be able to sign books in the end. I want to give you a little bit about her first. Jennifer Jean is a poet, translator, editor, and educator. Her latest book of poetry and translation is Where You Live, co-written and co-translated poems that are correspondence in Arabic and English with Iraqi poet Hanaa Ahmad Jabr. That was published by Archivist Press just a few months ago. She is also the editor of the forthcoming anthology Other Paths for Shahrazad, a bilingual anthology of poetry by Arab women, which is coming out with by Tupelo Press in 2026. Her other books of her own poetry are The Fool, Big Table, 2013, Vaz, published by Lily Poetry Review Books in 2023, The Archivist, 2011, In the War, 2010, and her teaching resource book, Object Lesson, A Guide to Writing Poetry, was published by Lily Poetry Review Books in 2021. She's been awarded a Peter Taylor Fellowship from the Kenyon Review Writers Workshop, a Disquiet Flag Fellowship from Zank Books, the 2016 Good Bones Poetry Prize, and an Ambassador for Peace Award from the Women's Federation for World Peace. Her poetry manuscript, Object, which explores objectification and human trafficking in the United States, was a finalist for the 2016 Green Mountains Review Book Prize and a semi-finalist for the 2016 Akron Poetry Prize. Her work has been anthologized in lots of different books in Writers of Portuguese Diaspora in 2015, Veils, Halos, and Shackles, International Poetry on the Oppression and Empowerment of Women in 2016, and Inheriting the War, Poetry and Prose by Descendants of Vietnam Veterans and Refugees. Her poem Inspiration Point was published in the 2022 Poem a Day series by the Academy of American Poets, and her poem The Pacific was published on the Slowdown Podcast. Is it Slowdown? Yes. She's also released Fishwife Tales, a collaborative CD with composer Sarah Devalier, which comprises art songs, rock ballads, and accompanied recitations. Her work has been published in Poetry Magazine, Rattle Magazine, The Common, Los Angeles Review, Denver Quarterly, Green Mountain Review, and elsewhere. She's the founder of Free to Write poetry workshops for trauma survivors and has been the poetry editor for Talking Writing Magazine and Mong Egg Review, as well as a translations editor for Consequence Forum. She is a board member of Fort Point Theater Channel and an organizer for the Her Story Is Collective. She's taught creative writing at Salem State University, Mass College of Art, Grub Street Writing Center, Hudson Valley Writing Center, and elsewhere. Jennifer Jean is currently the program manager of 24 Pearl Street, the Fine Arts Work Center online writing program, and a faculty member of the Solstice MFA in creative writing program at LaSalle University. Of Jennifer Jean's new book, the poet and translator and former poet laureate of Boston, Daniel Legro George, has said, quote, Jennifer Jean and Hanaa Ahmad Jabr dare bridge the hardest gulfs, those created by the seemingly intractable conditions of national enmity and war. In concept and accomplishment, these poems manifest the types of exchanges necessary to compassion, especially as they take up powerful tensions and sisterhoods. This work is effectively dialogic, vulnerable, and brave. Please welcome Jennifer Jean.
I'm going to just have this as my home base right here. Can you all hear me? I can speak louder. I do have teacher voice. It's been a while. I don't know if thank you for that wonderful introduction. One thing that wasn't said is that all the places that I've taught, I've actually taught creative writing for about 20 years. Gosh, it's hard to say that. But for about 20 years, I taught creative writing all over the Boston area. Salem State was mentioned, Mass Art, but also UMass Lowell. Oh my gosh, so many places. I think there are about a dozen places that they're all kind of blending in together. And so it's very, it feels very good to be here with you on this campus. You know, I feel like I'm returning home. I currently do have one teaching position at Solstice MFA. It's a low residency program, so if anyone wants to ask me about that during the Q&A or afterwards, you can, and you're interested in the low residency MFA program, what the heck is that? I know all about it. I can talk to you about that. And also, okay, I think I went through my notes here. I'm just going to go right into the poems, I think. How many of you here are practicing poets? Write some poetry? Okay, that's good. All right, so I'm going to start with the title poem of a book that was just accepted by Tupelo. I don't think that's in my bio yet. I've been working on it for many, many years. I don't know if you realize this, poets, we worked for a long time on our poetry, and I've had a couple of collections accepted. They were all, Tom went over them quite a bit. But this one I've just been working on for a long time. It's about my growing up in California, but more specifically a very narrow time of my growing up, which was after I was in foster care. So I spent from age 7 months to 7 years in foster care. The time right after was like really intense and was spent with my mom in California. So I'm just going to read two poems from that new collection and start with the title poem. And yeah, I think that's everything you need to know. All right. It's called The Pacific. I remember there were no road rails. I remember no road rails and the depth off the cliffs we motored along. I remember speed in a parched Chevy clunker that could not have sped, and bench seats and no buckles and bare thighs peeling off faux leather and every hairpin. Every elevated canyon mile was a feat, but a breath of less slickened air too, less cog and fume. A winding away from the wavering sea leg steam off blinding sidewalks, infinite sidewalks, and other shoeless kids kicking rusted palm leaves outside infinite apartment complexes. Away from our corner of the valley of concrete corners, of no evidence of valley besides boulders stacked in the distance of every vista. The driver was a stranger, was my mother, after my whole life had passed with stranger after stranger, Was my mother after 7 years, and me at 7 years, with her driving that snuff-colored Nova from her blinding valley, not a valley, through Laurel, Topanga, Malibu canyons, all the way to some fantastic, to her beloved blue eucalyptus, choking local growth the whole trek. And the cooling air as we efforted west, and the jolt of a castle, the castle, in a distant crook of a range that hid the slate of the ocean, made me want to stop moving, but not stop here. I remember hoping to find hermit crabs the size of the mole on my right side chin, and if I tethered them to a stick, they'd line up by mass and trade shells, find homes that fit. And there'd be one left without, one torn out. A book said a scientist leaned into wet sand, watched a torn crab die in the beak of a gull. I can't remember if I saw that death or read it. I remember watching a wrong castle tucked into a wrong mountain notch on the chin of the sky, like my hermit mole on my chin if my face were the sky. It's a beauty mark, my mother had said. Don't pick at it. I eyed that smoking stranger at the wheel and dug my nail in as the Pacific swelled into view that first time. So actually, in that book, The Pacific, I decided to have many poems with that same name, because that image of the Pacific in my mind, in my memory, was just so intense. I actually wrote the whole book here in Massachusetts. I've lived here for about 25 years now, oh my God. So I've lived here for 25 years, but the memory of the ocean and California, and it's the Los Angeles area, it's so vivid for me. And I was writing about it and I realized the word the Pacific, well, I remember, the word the Pacific doesn't just mean the actual thing itself, it means peace. And that was something that I was seeking in writing all these poems about that time in my life. And it's also something I was seeking at that time, as you probably imagine. So this next poem is also called The Pacific, and it's for my brother. We were very close when he was alive. He was a surfer. I was never a surfer. And yeah, he's basically he was a lost boy. The Pacific. Without a boogie board, you'd fling your body into the curve of the Pacific. Without baby oil, you'd still burn and be tender for days. Without a blanket, you'd drop your faded Eddie shirt, sit, and later shake it out, mop off your salt. Without shades, you'd razor your hand like a visor, squint at 5-footers rushing up at gulls. Without money, you drink from a fluoridated bubbler. You'd eat that deflated PB&J, box of raisins, yellow apple. Without a comb, your hair would turn to loose dreads, damp with foam with mist. Without shoes, your hot, calloused, hobbling feet would be fleet, would crave the Pacific. Without a boombox, you'd hear other people's music and walk the slanted shore till you found your summer song. Without somebody's love, there'd be a miracle. There'd be today. Does everybody know what a boombox is? I know I'm dating myself with that term. Radio is huge, the big speakers, and the guys used to carry it around. Of course. Yeah, walk down the street with it and share their music with everybody. So that's another theme. Music is a big theme in that book, The Pacific, and it's also part of this book that I have that you can find over there, Voz. It's Portuguese for voice. And my daughter designed this, actually. This cover, it's the setting sun. It reminded me of the Pacific and that LA kind of vibe. And I don't know if your teachers have told you this, but you can, before you have a full-length book, you can have a shorter book that contains poems from that full-length book, and it's called a chapbook. So that's what this is. It's a collection of poems about music, and I call those poems saturations. And they're inspired by just music that my mom would play from her generation, and also sounds that I would hear, like the sound of the ocean. And I count that poem I just read as a saturation. And this next poem is also a saturation. And I just want to see if there's anything you need to know. Well, it's based on the album Against the Wind, which was produced by Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. And my mom used to play that over and over. And it was part of this genre of music called the California sound at the time. I was very, very young, but she just kept playing that. So the songs from this album are in my head, but also the album cover. It's very beautiful. You can look it up later, Against the Wind. It's blue cover with these horses galloping on the ocean. And that also just stuck with me my whole life. So I wrote this poem. And it also mentions a lot of the fires that happen in California. It's very devastating over there. Luckily, we don't have to deal with that here. Against the Wind. All horses and homeless folk go to the beach, and fires rip through California canyons. They run through surf against the wind, away from the flame of the night. When the choke smoke dies, they canter home to campfire stones, tent poles, push carts, hoof brush wire, salt block racks, and spoons, the flats of certain spatulas. Not everything unnatural is gone. In the fortified Getty Museum, St. Martin dividing his cloak with a beggar, the piebald horse, and Van Gogh's irises are safe, too. Sometimes I feel less than a work of art, like a horse awash in a wave not ablaze, like I'm home free when the ash is thick on ground I've slept on for months. Sometimes I wait for miles of asters, blue dicks, and desert pincushions for an after-fire super bloom to feel useful, creative, though I know that's as unwise as a California breeze after a decade of drought. So I'm going to move on to just two poems from this book, Object Lesson. It's also a chapbook. The longer work was just too devastating for me to put out. The longer book and this chapbook are about sex trafficking issues and human trafficking issues and objectification in America. And I'm not a survivor of that. Doing the research, I interviewed many people. It was really intense, and so it's sometimes difficult for me to read poems from this, but I think it's instructive if you're a person who wants to write a project book. This is a good kind of book to check out. I'm going to read one poem for survivors of abuse and trafficking residing at the Breaking Free Safe House in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Bird. Rockren? Godwit? Bobolink? What are we looking at? What's beaked and broken free from a classic iron bell cage with a blown out hole opposite a latched door? No thickened keratin could peck that well. No claw-turned fist busted up that joint. Inside, she was key. She was cheap. She was a flipped bad finger. Now this bird wings, as every bird stepping out of the life, with no credit, no reference, and a little self-love. What are we looking at? A second wind, the flight inside the creature that is the holy, eternal verb is who bent the metal is the mother of a lighter bone, the kind that terror cannot allow. And I'm just going to read one more from this book. This one is very fully about the concept of objectification, thinking other people are objects and not actual people like yourself. So it's called Object Lesson. I say, hold in your yell and face the window, then place her objects in a long row on her mussed-up bed. At my go, my daughter turns and strikes. She doesn't hit the plastic Appaloosa with neon pink saddle, or the boy-sized bear in stained red hoodie, or the pellet-filled pillow, or her ratty lime blankie. She hits the American Girl doll. Why? She's like a person, and I'm mad at a person. Some kind of science here, some kind of art. So I say, now you've a chance to think. What would you hit? The pillow, she says, because you told me to hit things when I'm mad, not people. I did. It's a soft thing, she smiles. It can't hurt me. Okay, so I'm gonna read several poems, and I'm probably not gonna pause in the middle. And these are from my book, Where Do You Live? And this book means so much to me. It really does. It's co-written, as Tom said, with an Iraqi poet, Hanaa Ahmad Jabr. I met her through a group that was looking for poets. Can you imagine? There's some group out there that's like, we need a poet. And the group is called Her Story Is, the Her Story Is Collective. And they wanted to bring Hanaa and me together in Dubai in 2017. I went, and Hanaa was not able to make it because she was restricted from traveling, as were many women that were coming out of Iraq. They couldn't travel to this program in Dubai. But after the program, we decided, okay, we're just poets that only speak our own language. I only speak English, she only speaks Arabic. And we decided we wanted to collaborate on a book that would be about this question here. Where do you live? We decided that first before we started writing. And we also just set up the structure of the project, which was, she would send me a poem, and then she would send her poem to a translator, one of our translators, and then the translator would put it in English, and the translators were not poets, so they're just translating, and then they would give me the English version, and I would beautify it and shape it and ask questions and make it into a poem that would be pleasurable and understood by readers of English. And then I would in turn then write a poem in English in response, and then it would go the other way. We just kept going back and forth until we had a book-length work. And I still find myself writing to Hanaa still, because it was such a pleasure, and it really made me look very close at English. The way I write poems, and the way I use English, and the way I understand people from other countries that are not speaking English. And we realized we have so much in common. Our view of poetry was very much the same. Our humor is very similar. I mean, we were a match made in heaven, as regards poetry. I really love her. I feel that she's my sister, more than a friend. So this is very important. So what I want to do for all of you is read a poem of hers and then a poem of mine. And I'm going to try to do this like I'm her over here and I'm me over here. Try to move so you can get an understanding of who's who. And I'm also, after the title, I'll say who wrote which poem, so you can connect to what's going on. And I'm going to start with the title poem that Hanaa wrote. We both wrote a Where Do You Live poem, and I'm going to start with hers first. Where Do You Live by Hanaa Ahmad Jabr. I don't know of the name of the first war that birthed me. Perhaps no one recorded it. Perhaps the tigress witnessed it, alone knowing every direction, alone remembering the myths and the facts attending its flow since forever. I live here, in the north, where memory is bloody sorrowful, where I belong to the river and stand on one bank, one eye open, staring at the ruins of the old city decaying, whispering, "O God of old alleys, protect us from the next war." Here I am, watching the Shams Gate reanimating the walls of Nineveh, the statue of Abu Tamam, waving to arrivals, the bridges connecting the lungs of the city, the clouds eager for rain, unobscured by smoke, the river rushing without bodies of war to stop it, and many more sidewalks and other things breaking news can't mention, nor rehab for PTSD, nor reports from BBC or CNN, nor any channels. Yes, I live here, while my other eye is closed, hiding dreadful war scenes, with nothing to help me form a description, not grandmother's tales, nor children's dreams, not poetry festivals, nor literary criticism, nor horror movies, not UN reports, nor history texts. No sentence in any language could bear the weight of that terror. Here, I feel my eyes swelling with it all, carrying the archives for future generations. And here, my face swells too. My arms, my torso. Oh, I'm here embracing myself, swelled again and rising. I think I fell upwards as usual. Now, Jennifer, you may wonder, who are you? What is your hometown? And I'll answer immediately, with one eye still closed. We are the two eyes together forever. Okay, now it's my turn. The Falconers by Jennifer Jean. I don't know you yet, Hanaa, I don't know if you've heard of Tinseltown, if you'd ever be drawn to this palace of narrative, this hero's journey peddler. Though this plot is programmed to receive our kind, we are potential creators. We chase denouement. We begin together, walk west on Sunset Boulevard, away from the Industry of Death Museum towards Hollywood High. Pause under a grimy awning at the Budget Inn, the final place my war-torn father held me. It was so odd. He held me once before, 48 years before. It'd been 1 year of the rat to another year of the rat. The cobalt sky slouched against us each time. This time, the door to a drug rehab center kept slamming open. Then I let him go home to his motel room. I turned west. Let's race west together, Hanaa, and let that scene be happy, a small image out of Spiritus Mundi. Above us, so many dull brass stars litter Vine Street. We're all tourist trek. Let's be human together instead. Outstrip the setting sun. We'll need to be Californian. We'll need a convertible, though I hate those things. The sky and its potential poisons always enter. A glittering burn enters, and if you want to drive, drive. Outpace the autumn light with one arm on the door, with one hand on the wheel. Wind around the warm Santa Ana winds. Point out every transplanted palm, every perched kestrel. Pull in at the end of the boulevard at Gladstone's Beach. And together, in this lot, we'll face the cotton candy cumulus, the periwinkle glow over cold ocean motions. With our words, we'll remake every fake enamel falcon into a gift, into freedom, in clean air. We'll rewrite this town, make true all silver screen sisterhoods, all the stuff that dreams are made of. So for students of poetry, this is like what they would call purple writing. I stuffed so much stuff in this, so many references. If you ever go back and look at it and there's all kinds of Easter eggs in there. If you're curious, that's what I liked about poetry, is poetry that was jam-packed with things. I like spare poetry too. I tend not to write it, as you can probably notice. I like it spare because it has a place. Sometimes I want that, like I want that flavor of something clean and spare and simple. But other times I want something like this, where it's all chock full of, there's music references, movie references, there's stuff you gotta know if you live in LA, there's all kinds of stuff there. All right. Very non-classified information by Hanaa Ahmad Jabr. No homeland keeps a chest where my head can cry. No war kills my memory. That's how I answer your eyes, Jennifer, which listen to my hand's life story. No hand waves over the old bridge. No neighbor takes into account our need for the voice of Ferouz. No luggage keeps my evening dresses and a picture of my lips before they dry. No lover calls me in the morning whispering, "Wake up, let the world wake up." No family is fit for my leaving, for plunging myself into the nearest exile. No friend strokes the shoulder of my sadness, nor stops my hand which welcomes death. Death is to expect death. Three Tales by Jennifer Jean. My mom tries to convince me she didn't leave me for 7 years. I'm driving through Salem. This is a dangerous game. To win, I can't play. I can't want to play. I can only grip the wheel, breathe, practice forgiveness, which means shining a light on facts, even though, as you say, Hanaa, light becomes a wound from which boundless gasps ooze. Part of my second tale is the tale you didn't tell me, Hanaa. I was born on the 4th of July. This is true. We dance around this fact, but dancing is how we know each other. The third tale is that I want control when God is in control. Hanaa, if we walk Salem streets, talk, and feel a warm wind, we did not tell that wind breeze to touch our hair, which reminds me of the time technology told me the Arabic word for hair is the Arabic word for poetry, which is a lovely mystery. There's a lot of true stuff. My birthday is the 4th of July, and I was very aware of that when I was talking to Hanaa. You know, I felt like I represent America, oh my God. But also, the other thing that's in here that's also true is the Arabic word. I would look it up on, you can't trust these AIs, but in any case, I would look it up and I put in the word for poetry just to see what it was in Arabic, and it looked to be the same as hair. And so she told me I was wrong because there was some notational mark I was missing in the word. But in any case, I thought that was interesting, because anytime I translated something, she was talking about poetry, it would always say hair. So that's why it's good to go through humans for these things. All right, 3 Tales by Hanaa Ahmad Jabr. I talked to you, the other, about a nation consuming the dreams of lovers, mothers, and the holiday sweets of Eid, about the soil swallowing soldiers, turning them to mounds, new metropolises, facing monuments and recollections that are obedient to stabbing pain. I talked to you, the other, about nightfalls, turning the poems suspicious, the corners restless, and the light into a wound from which boundless gasps ooze. I talked to you, the other, about the way each war documented its history with a hole in my voice until it became a flute. And I don't know how much time I have. I'm good? Okay. High Noon by Jennifer Jean. And did I tell you, Hanaa? American history is wrapped in film. We watch our gunslingers meet when the sun is directly overhead, so the gunfight is fair. So neither man is blinded by anything other than hatred, short-sightedness, ingratitude, ego. Some of us believe in this scene. Some of us believe in their dusty women crying at home. But some of us believe in the fact of a clear sky so blue, 2 bodies can bathe in sunlight. See down the center of a dirt road in a rustic hometown. See for miles into the niches and nooks of each other's faces. A miracle. We think this lack of shadow is heaven. And it's only heaven if we've nothing to hide. Let's meet here, Hanaa, on the original road of this mutual hometown with our translator, Wada. And once we all get used to the terrible discomfort of imperfect understanding, we'll know heaven. We'll know friendship is possible. Portrait by Hanaa Ahmad Jabr. There's no running from our sorrow, from his grip as he drags us into the nearest war. No running from his fingers, molding us like snowballs from an eastern region, though we vanish fast. No running from his mean greed as he devours us all like new food. No running from his rattling ideas as cold and cool. He smokes our dreams, going and coming. He's coming close, this necromancer as usual. Closer, closer, and here, he crafts his chapeau from our skulls, gloves from our skin. He wears the remains of our lives, declares his win while standing on our carnage. But a win over what? I don't know. Maybe our distant spark of light. Oh God, he's stolen even our sorrow. Now how do we grieve? I didn't know how to respond to that poem, so this was my attempt, because that one really hit me hard. Regarding your poem Portrait by Jennifer Jean, possible responses include vague extended apologies for my comfort or my government, details of dystopian nightmares complete with sharp rusted metal and unbroken screams, below the desk nuclear winter fears from 7th grade, half-remembered news reports of shrapnel, both ancient and recent, silence, hope, stories about a woman swallowed by a Burmese python. She wanted to check on the pigs in her cornfield, but he found her, bit her, crushed her, consumed her. Then 3 poet friends wrote sonnets starring this woman, this python. They invited me to write one too, so I wrote How to Kill Pythons. It was full of theory and snake hatred, of blue mouthwash, lit thick lighters, machete chops below the jawline, and how you certainly can't love them to death. Anyways, war eats love. Love's a fat lump in the belly of a beast. Family and friends run out, search, wail, find a footprint, a slipper, a torch, and then, after slicing through the scales, near the bulge, a broken woman dressed for a stroll. Hanaa I saw her unveiled, my eyes squinting between my fingers. And this is what I can do: read your poems, write my poems, and live between the two. And then I'm going to end with my title poem for the book, Where Do You Live? By Jennifer Chung. I should say I live in my body, in the knowledge I was fated for, like you said, Hanaa, poetry. And even if I try hard not to, I tell all the truth but tell it slant. I live in these secrets spelled out for the curious. I live in Salem, with the ghosts of accused witches. I live in the San Fernando Valley in California in my poems. I live in fear of loneliness, but my real hometown is anger at the way things are when they should be better. I decided to move away from should. I want to say I live in peace. If we're talking about time folding into the now, the future being now. At least I live in motion along those folds, sometimes when I'm talking to you, Hanaa. When I fly, I think I've always lived in midair, from Boston to Kolkata, from San Francisco to Seoul. I asked a pilot once about the hometown of a baby born mid-flight. He didn't know what to say. He paused forever. He may have been telling the truth, but slant. I'm still waiting for answers. I used to live in wasted days, staring at sunshine and trees. They were wasted on me then, but not now. I live there now, in this poem. You can live forever in a poem. I live in the middle of creation when I can. It's the best way to live. So that's all I have.
So much, and questions for Jennifer? Reactions, responses?
I know I talked pretty fast, so if there's anything that just was like touched on but not fully explained. Yes?
I don't know if you mentioned it, so sorry if I'm confused. How did you and Hannah get the idea of the book together?
Well, I mentioned it a little bit, but I think it's one of the things I kind of glossed over. In 2017, we were supposed to meet in Dubai with this group, this women's collective, artist collective called Her Story Is, and we couldn't meet because I don't want to go into it too many details why she couldn't come, but it was something very intense happened. She was unable to make it. And then when I returned home, I was supposed to be paired up with her, and we were supposed to talk there and figure something out. So I just reached out to her and I said, let's do something. Let's write poems to each other maybe. And then we met on Zoom, and we just decided the Where Do You Live, because it had many layers. Like as poets, if you're a really good poet, so I guess I'm trying to think of myself as a really good poet, you're thinking of things on many levels. And so the question, where do you live, it's like a polite thing, like strangers would ask each other, like, hey, where do you live? Oh, I live in Salem. She lives in Mosul, in Iraq. But then it can go elsewhere. Like, where do you live in your memories? Where do you live, in your heart? Where's your spirit travel to? Where do you live, I don't know, in your grudges, in your hate? She told me she lives in war. And she's not going through war right now, but that's where she lives. So a lot of her work had to do with war. We just kind of let ourselves talk about whatever we wanted to talk about, where we lived. So I think it's just in the how we came up with it. It's just we just talked it over and we came up with a poetic thing that could work, and then it worked. It was amazing. So I hope that explains.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, they're thinking, I'm curious just in terms of the translation process and maybe some things that were difficult to translate in ways that you had to adapt some of those to English, or and what where some of those explorations took you, I guess.
Well, I had to resist my own habits. So if you look at my poetry, it's heavily end-jammed. So hopefully you all know that, end-stop lines versus end-jam lines. End-stop is like the phrase ends naturally. Like, I love you, period, maybe that's a quote, I love you. I tend to do like something like I love, and then I break the line and put you. that would be an enjambment. So I had to really resist that tendency. You can do a lot of things as a translator. Like I could have just asked her, you know, can I just break up your lines how I want to, because that's what I'm used to doing. But I decided not to. I decided to be a little more polite and not do that, and I just kept her lines. And she happened to have, enjambment is not as popular there. That's what because I asked her about it. And she thought it was fascinating to work with the enjambments, because she was excited by it. And so it was learning, we were learning from each other. I learned like I can do an end stop. I don't have to always like chop that thing in half. It might not help the reader. I do end stops, I do end jams for the sake of reading, because it becomes like a way for me to pause when I'm reading. I don't know if it's evident when I'm reading, but that was one thing, the enjambment thing. And then another was, I just had to be patient. The whole thing, we had to like, you know, you write your poem and you send it off, and actually that part wasn't hard, because I was the one getting translated. When I received her poem, I would usually look at it and it was like, I would freak out every single time. There's like, how many poems in 48 pages? 24 of her poems. Every single time I was freaked out, because it just was like, what the hell does this mean? I don't know, and I felt like a responsibility. And then suddenly if I just would find one phrase that made kind of sense, and then I would start working on it and composing several questions for the co-translator that we worked with. It was either Wada, who I mentioned in one of the poems, or this woman named Tamara. They're both linguists, and they live in Basra. And yeah, they would just answer my questions, and then I would break through. And it's just like writing my own poetry. Sometimes I'll write, I have like a stone paper notebook, everybody's got their little thing. I have a stone paper notebook, I write prose, some prose inspiration that I have, some idea comes to me and I write it down. But I don't even know what it means, and then it just takes one phrase, a word, or mood, or rhythm, and then I break through. It's the same thing in my poetry, but when I did the translation, I have to break through every time. It's not very specific, but that's just how it felt.
And helpful to hear that like, it's hard to even make sense of. You have to ask questions in that direct
Completely.
translation.
Yeah, it was difficult. And then vice versa. And I decided also not to hold back on all my references. And she loved it. She was like, awesome, let's get into this. I want to figure out how to say this in Arabic. Because my poems, like I said, are very dense. They're not clear and easy, but she was into it, and I was into hers too. They're not to say hers are easy, but not having the end jams really made it a little easier. Anything else, folks?
Can I just follow up with
Yeah.
Is there any, were there any idioms that like stand out for you that you're like, you had to say, okay, how do I do that in English? And idiomatic expressions.
Well, in one of the poems I read, I used the word chapeau, which is French for hat. And I didn't want to use the word hat, because hat's boring. I just thought, oh, in the line, I read the line and I was like, hat. I have to look up which poem it was. I didn't say the line. But yeah, I don't remember exactly which one. But in any case, that was something. It was a phrase that I just wanted to dress it up, but there's no other way in English. Like, what are some synonyms for hat? Does anybody know? Cap, I guess. Hat, cap, boring. So I don't like to use boring words. I didn't want to represent her poem badly, so I just asked if my husband's French. I don't speak French either, but I just, some words are still bouncing around our household and when he and his mom talk. So I just thought, can I use chapeau? And the translator was Wadak at the time, and Hanaa, they both loved it. They was like, sure. So that was something, but that's not an idiom, actually, but it is a word change. There were no, I don't think word idiom things. There was a word, I used the word necromancer. They don't have that word, but she described it, there was whatever the word was, she described what it was, and then I just thought, okay, that sounds like necromancer. Do you all know what a necromancer is? Okay, yeah. Magic or some kind of wizard. Am I saying this right? You guys that shook your head, yes. Wizard or magician that deals with the dead, usually raising the dead. She was like, oh, we don't have just a word for that. And yeah, so I used that. But no idioms that are coming along. Yeah. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. A lot of information. Anyone have a question about MFA programs, especially the low residency MFA? I'm fine with answering anything about that.
or other creative writing programs you've been teaching at you?
I can say something about, it just happens to be on my water bottle, Fine Arts Work Center where I work. If you're not interested in pursuing an MFA in creative writing, totally fine, they're extremely expensive. The next best thing is a low res, but after that is something like this, the Fine Arts Work Center. And I run their online writing program. And you just can be from anywhere in the world, actually, but mostly it's in the United States, and people just sign up for creative writing classes in memoir, poetry, fiction, and you can take a class on the weekend, on a full week, like 2 hours a day on a 5-day week, or over 4 weeks, or a 3-hour class. We have all kinds of classes, and it's just a great way, like let's say you're studying something else, your major's in some other field, but you still want to continue your creative writing practice. That's why we exist, the Fine Arts Work Center exists. And they have like an in-person thing in Provincetown, but I'm not involved with that. I work from Salem remotely, and I just run the entire program. So if anyone has questions about that, you can ask me afterwards. But it's a great way to, yeah, if you're like, oh, I really like creative writing, but I want to make money, something else that makes money, that's fine. You can still continue your practice. It's totally possible. Yeah?
What led you to write about sex trafficking?
Ooh, I read a statistic. There's 2 reasons. I read a statistic that said foster care kids, especially the young ladies, they're a high propensity of them. How much? It was like something like 70-something% from foster care end up sex trafficked. And I was like, whoa, I dodged some kind of bullet there. And then when I read that, I started thinking about my life, different directions that I could have gone in, that could have led me down those paths. And when I was interviewing some women, they were like telling me how they started or how they were coerced into it. And I was remembering things that had happened to me, and I was like, this person could have been me very easily. That was one reason. The other thing was, at church, our pastor was a woman, and she had an encounter in Las Vegas with this woman that was trafficked. And she was sharing about it, and she said, if anyone out there, wants to, do anything about it, I encourage you to. And I felt myself like crying. I mean, I cry, I guess, but not in public. I'm kind of reserved. I don't like to cry, but I was just like bawling, and I just realized, I don't know why, but I have to research it. And then I read that statistic, and I was like, oh, that could have been very easily, many times, like 10, 15 different situations where I just, instead of going this way, I went this way, and I avoided that path. So. Oh, hi.
I'm curious what kinds of writing projects you're up to now, or what's in progress.
So I have a book that was just accepted by Tupelo, big press. I'm so happy. The Pacific, which I read from, that's down the road. I haven't even inked the contract yet. But also I have you're going to be interested in this. I have a translation project that also is just ready to be inked. I'm going to be being a series editor for contemporary Arab women poetry. And that's with Black Ocean Press. Yeah, I'm so happy. So I won't be, actually that's not true, I'll be co-translating one of the books, and it'll be by Hanaa. That's the first book. And then the rest will be, I'll just be making arrangements. If you know of anybody, yeah, talk to me. But yeah, so it'll be a series of books by contemporary Arab women. So they'll have a say, and a lot of these women, their work will never have appeared in English. Probably almost all of them in the series won't have appeared in English, and so they'll get a greater audience, and yeah, just it's a great learning opportunity for English readers and for them as well. So.
What is one piece of advice you would give writers?
Oh, I have so many, but I'd say don't give up. Like ride momentum, build momentum, and keep going, and don't give up. That could apply to like whichever direction you're going to, in any kind of writing field, because people just drop off and they let the momentum just drop. And then that's actually why they don't, quote unquote, make it. I mean, Tom read a very long bio for me. I was actually shocked that you read that. That's like showing years, like years and years of stuff. It's because I never gave up. That's actually how I have book series and anthologies I'm editing. I mean, I'm good, but really I think I never gave up. I never stopped. So, yeah.
How'd you find that strength?
Well, I believe in God, so for me, it's God. That's how I did it. And I think that's also how I was able to, as I was saying earlier, I had two ways I could go in many situations why I didn't go down the wrong path. It's because I had a belief in God, and I was like, God save me, something like that. So that's, I think if you don't have that, I think having community is super, super important. As a writer too, so for the earlier advice I gave to keep going, if you have community, you guys just build each other up, and like hold each other accountable to schedules or submitting things or writing things. And this kind of advice goes for anything. The never give up advice, that's everything. But also having community in any kind of goal. So same goes for writing. If you're a poet, you have a poetry workshop group, that's good. There's things at the Fine Arts Work Center. We have this new program it's actually called the WAG, the Writing Accountability Group. One of them is starting today, and they just meet online for an hour, and they just set goals and tell each other if they met their goals, and then they meet next. Like, no, I didn't meet that goal. Or, yes, I did. And then at the end, they just kind of do quiet writing at the same time. And that way you're not in it by yourself, because as a writer, it's so lonely. It's a crazy lonely field. We're just at our desks, At the Fine Arts Work Center, they were like, what kind of picture should we take of a poet doing work? And I was like, that's boring. We're just sitting there, like in a notebook or typing the dead of night or, but we need to break out of that. That leads to success. And I mean like success publishing books, but also the satisfaction success. I finished this one poem. I feel good about this one poem. It leads to that too, having that community. And they'll help you never give up.
It's a pleasure to end. Great. Well, thank you. And we have a box somewhere. Anybody who has raffle tickets, we want to raffle off 3 books. So can you give me your raffle tickets and pop them in here? You guys don't like to write. Oh, no? 10? Don't want that. Okay. One more. Sure. And thank you. And the talk of community, I know there are students that are here from creative writing classes, great communities within our creative writing classes. Those who are in English classes, some are here that are not in our creative writing program, but we have a creative writing program with creative writing classes, and great place to get feedback from others and learn from others and have that kind of community of writers that helps one another and gives each other feedback. So we're going to choose some winners here. Let's shuffle around here. And then let me do the honors. Okay.
Wow. All right. The first winner is Rick Vithria. R-I-C-R-I-K.
Come on.
Sorry.
Sure. All right, good work. Jennifer will be happy to sign books afterwards, I'm sure. And she has other books for sale, some of those she mentioned.
Okay, next is Shreya Piles. Is that right?
Shreya, all right. Great stuff. Good job, Shreya.
Oh,
Two.
Delisa T. Here you go, enjoy.
Great, thank you all for being here. I just want to mention, again, we have a wonderful creative writing program. There are students here from our classes and programs. Those who are involved with the creative writing classes or are in the program, be sure to touch base with me. There's a great opportunity later in the week to sit in on craft talk by Jennifer Jean on Friday afternoon. But I want to mention we have a couple of upcoming events in Bedford on the 22nd. We have an open poetry and fiction reading, so students will be reading their fiction and poetry and other things. In this room on November 5th at 12:30, will be an open poetry and fiction reading. Students, faculty reading their staff, others reading poetry, fiction. Please let me know if you're interested in reading. Sign it up. We also have another visiting writer on our Bedford campus. Frederick Reichen is an amazing novelist. His work has been translated into many languages and been highly rated and a big bestseller. So he's going to be here on Wednesday, the 19th of November. So please add those to the calendar. We have a website which is creativewritingmcc.wordpress.com, and it has events like these listed, and also has an archive of recordings of events. And also, Dead River Review is our literary magazine at the college. So if you're a writer or thinking about writing, or a poet, or a photographer, or a painter, other things, we're looking for visuals, we have music on there, all sorts of things. So keep that in mind, and that will be coming up. But take a look, it's deadriverreview.com. So again, thanks for being here, and leave that book on. And one more round of applause. Thanks, Jennifer, for being here. Talk with Jennifer, have your book signed, and thanks again for being here.